Ryder, welcome to California Live.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so The Red Weather. This is a podcast that blends kind of real-life inspiration with true crime mystery. So how did this idea come about?
Really, I grew up in Northern California in the Redwoods, kind of in this very unique time when I was surrounded by a lot of like communes, some might say cults, there was a lot of like alternative family situations that my friends were growing up in. And I didn't really know what was happening a lot of times. They were just friends I went to school with or whatever. Yeah. So I decided to start interviewing them about their experiences. And as I was gathering the information, I was just struck by the idea of like, this could be an interesting documentary, an audio documentary, but what if there was a missing girl inside of these situations? And so I created a fictional character who disappeared when I was a teenager and created a whole fictional narrative where rather than just going back and interviewing friends about how they grew up, I was trying to solve the mystery of this girl who doesn't exist, but she was a combination of people that I grew up with. So then I was still able to do interviews with like my real family and my real friends and get real clips. So when you're listening to it, the goal is that it really, you can't tell the difference between fiction and actors. And I just love you because for me, I love podcasts. I love true crime podcasts. But this way, there's no actual crime. I don't feel like I'm exploiting any real life situation. And you hopefully can't tell when you're listening to it.
Plot twist until the story actually becomes real and you're like, oh my God, this actually happened.
That's funny.
That would be crazy. You mentioned friends and family. This is a family affair with some of your family actually working on the podcast. How is that dynamic?
It was great. So my wife is an actor. We actually met on a TV show. So that was easy to get, and my son, who is now 11, he was 10 when we were recording, he's actually started to do voiceover acting, so he's really good, and so it was really easy. We just improvised together, and so recording with them was great. And then my parents, the irony is like, the reason I became an actor was that when I was a kid, my dad came home with a video camera, and we just started making movies together as a family, and when I was like 2 and 3. So going back to ask them to be a part of this, and like mostly I was just interviewing them and asking them real questions, but then I would also give them somewhat scripted scenes and say, okay, now let's pretend that the cops just knocked on the door. And then it was so fun with my brother and my parents, and my brother turned to me, he's like, this is just like when we were kids. We're just doing it still. It's just make believe together.
Oh my gosh, full circle moment right there. Okay, so you've done this before. You've co-created the Literary Disco, Pod Meets World. You've also hosted those. How did those experiences shape the way you approached this podcast?
This was completely different. I mean, I've been into podcasting forever. I think that there's just certain people, it's like the best way to receive information about the world. For me, it is. Like, I just love audio. So I fell in love with podcasts back in 2008, 2009, and I started Literary Disco, which was a book-based podcast. Turns out there's not a huge market for having people. It was basically a book club, and when you're asking people to read 300 or 400 pages every week, it wasn't super popular. But we had our like little corner of the internet that we did it for like 10 years, made no money because back then nobody made money on podcasts. And so then with Pod Meets World, I was like, hey, I had never seen a single episode of Boy Meets World, and I brought that up to my castmates, and I was like, what if we did a podcast where we just watched the show? And this was before rewatch podcasts were a thing. This was like 2019. And they were like, that sounds crazy. How does it work? We didn't know. But then we launched it, and it turned into this huge phenomenon. We now have taken it on tour around the country, and we have tons of listeners, and it's really changed our lives for the better.
Speaking of Boy Meets World, we had Danielle Fishel on the show a couple of weeks ago. We asked her how would Topanga navigate today's social media world. So we want to know how Sean Hunter would navigate today's social media world.
That's a great question. I think Sean would probably be very good at social media. He was always so confident, especially in the early seasons. There's this big joke that he has like a 30-foot range with his hairstyle. And I just think, I think he would probably thrive in a way that like I don't. I'm way more shy and like not willing to. I don't love putting myself out there visually, which is another reason why I like podcasts. And yet I feel like
they just hear you.
Yes,
you just talk.
Exactly. That's so much easier. So much less pressure for me. But I think Sean would love it because he was much more confident in that way. So
amazing.
He would probably
I think he would do great. I think he would do great. Ryder, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.